Welcome to Appointed Counsel, a podcast presented by Tennessee Court Talk for those involved in indigent representation. I'm Joe Byrd, lead attorney for the Indigent Services Team of the Tennessee Administrative Office of the Court. Episode 6, Court Reporter Expenses. Well, part of the regular practitioners under Rule 13, Appointed Counsel, will know something about the need for court reporters. And today, for our podcast, we have Lisa Angel with us. Lisa, we're glad to have you here on our podcast, Appointed Counsel, today. Tell us a little bit about your background and what is your role here at the AOC?
I've been a court reporter for over 25 years. I was a court reporter through civil and then through criminal. Criminal's about 14 or 15 years of criminal court reporting. And then now I'm the court reporter manager for the state of Tennessee for all criminal courts, court reporters.
And what does that entail when you say that you're the court reporter manager? What does that mean?
That means I help them with different issues that come up, questions about invoices, or as in this case, Rule 13 type invoices. Also, I help with the BIS equipment that's in the courtrooms. As far as all of the proceedings are recorded, then we keep a history of that for years to come if something were to come back on that. So anything pretty much to do with court reporters, that's what I do.
You know, I'm licensed to practice in Michigan and Florida, in addition to Tennessee. And in those states, at least in Michigan as I recall, each court had its own hired court reporter that took care of any needs for recording a hearing and then eventually producing a transcription. Here in Tennessee, we use more private court reporters a little bit. Can you kind of give us, with your experience, before we get into our talk about Rule 13, give us an overview of how court reporters work here in Tennessee?
In Tennessee, there's civil court reporters that are licensed court reporters, and they work in circuit court and any other arena other than criminal court. And they can work in criminal court also. And then we have the criminal court reporters, and they can both overlap. Really, it's pretty much like freelance work is what it is, or a sole practitioner attorney that would be working just for themselves. And they can work in different courts and also depositions and all kinds of things. Anywhere someone wants to take down a written record for a board hearing, things like that, they do all of that. And in criminal court, we have court reporters we have a few officials that we still have in the state of Tennessee, but most of our court reporters now are contract court reporters. And some are designated reporters. That means that they work for certain judges assigned to a certain courtroom. And then some just go in different districts or different counties within the district. They may follow a judge like that. And then some kind of float from courtroom to courtroom and help out as needed.
Now, something that you said there, the difference between official court reporters and contract court reporters, that was actually new to me coming to the AOC because in my private practice, I would hire outside court reporters to come and do depositions, set up for hearings, take care of trials, those kinds of things. Tell us the difference between official court reporters and contract court reporters.
Official court reporters work for the same judge all the time. They're always in the same courtroom. And they're also an actual employee of the state of Tennessee, where the others would be contract and they can go from court to court. But some do also stay assigned with one courtroom. So that's the difference. They're actually an employee of the state.
So, Lisa, this podcast is for practitioners. Usually what I mean by that are attorneys, interpreters, could be court reporters that might be listening, but it's mainly for those who represent indigent clients. And just like any other litigation, the work of the court reporter is essential in our cases. We sent a memo out August 15th of 2023. It's actually on the AOC website. People want to go to tncourts.gov. They can see on the IST page, they'll be able to see that memo. But it provides a great deal of information, but it's equally important for court reporters to know some of that information, right?
Yes, I tell the court reporters to ask if the client is indigent and that before doing the transcript to make sure you have the AOC approved order from the attorney.
Yeah, I've run into a few since I've been here where the attorney didn't know that we have specific rules as it applies to court reporters and getting reimbursed for or getting the court reporters paid under Rule 13. So we saved a sample copy of an order for a transcript on the website too, tncourts.gov, so folks can take a look at that order, not only for the attorneys to look at it, but for the court reporters to make sure they've got that in hand before they start any work. Before we dive in, I just want to make sure we understand as we organize it, and I think really the work of court reporters sort of breaks down into two categories. It is the appearance, showing up, taking down the testimony, getting it recorded, and then it's the transcription of the work. Is that about fair, accurate description, you think?
Yes, that's right.
So can you provide us some of the essential parts of the orders that we were just talking about that you're telling court reporters need to be part of those orders?
Yes. When they get the order from the attorney, it's a good idea to look over it and make sure that the estimate that's provided there is enough to cover the cost of the transcript. And a lot of times the attorneys will ask the court reporters ahead of time to give them an estimate. And that's really good for attorneys to do. We would like to try to keep them from having to go back and ask for more funds if it's not enough, especially in some of the hearings. That could be the case. And also in the order, it would need to put copies, if applicable, if there's something they need copies of, another copy of the transcript for one of the other attorneys. Everything needs to be listed in the order. Also, if they need copies of the exhibits, sometimes that happens, not that often. But just in case, we need all of that put in there so it can be pre-approved. And then we won't have to go back and forth with corrections and additions. And the invoice itself will need to have the number of pages and by the rate of the AOC, which is $4. Then it totals out. It would have the case information and the attorney's signature on the invoice itself. And then you would send in the invoice and the copy of the pre-approved order together, and it would be logged in and sent over to the Indigent Department for processing.
I think the order that we put on the tncourts.gov website actually has some of that information that you're talking about, like the number of pages. It's $4 per page, and it's the original and one copy. And if they don't put the amount that you're suggesting, we put a kind of a default amount in there, and I think it's $500.
Right.
And so they need to, though, give us an estimate. And we don't mind if they factor in a little bit more, and then the final invoice can be a little less. But like you said, we don't want the court, and we don't want them having to ask for additional monies. We certainly don't want them to double it. If it's an estimated $600 transcript, we don't want them to put $1,200. But we just don't want them going back and asking for more. So we actually put some of that information in the order that we've got posted on the website too. And so you sort of kind of put it all together, send it over to us. And then, as you know, our platform for processing payments is known as ACAP. And it wasn't set up to process the claims for court reporters originally. And so it requires this really labor-intensive manual process to get the claims loaded into ACAP so that then we can transmit them over to F&A, Finance and Administration, so that the payments can be processed. And we've tried various ways of trying to address these claims to get them done as timely as we can, but we can't stay within the 30-day time frame, really, that we do for attorney online claims.
I usually tell the court reporters that payments are generally run about 45 days on the Rule 13 invoices, so that way they won't be looking for it like at the 30 days.
And just so you know, and some of our listeners, if they are court reporters, they may want to know that I am trying to look at a solution for that, but it probably won't be something that will happen within the next few months. It might be in a year or two, but we are trying to come up with a software answer to some of that. Is there anything that you would want appointed attorneys to know about working with court reporters as we're talking about their preparation of transcripts?
Yes, we really need them to let the court reporter know ahead of time if the case involves an indigent party. And the reason is the court reporter is supposed to have the pre-approved order before they do the transcript. And also in like certain hearings, they would have to have that order in order to be able to do that.
We've run into a few. I think I've come over to your office and talked a few times about attorneys who had a court reporter show up who didn't have a contract with us, wasn't approved, and then wouldn't take $4 per page. They wouldn't take the rate, and they really got themselves in a fix because I can only approve the amount that's been approved by the court. So it's really important for their sake as well as for the court reporter's sake that they make sure. What about prior to preparing the transcript when they make their appearance at hearings or proceedings? What about that process?
It's just like before preparing a transcript. They will also need to make sure they get a pre-approved order for that before they attend a TPR hearing and then other hearings that would fall under Rule 13, because that needs to be approved before they actually go through the hearing itself.
And there are certain appearance rates that apply?
Yes, there are. On the order that the attorney gives you, it should have what you will be actually turning in your invoice for, which would be $350 for a day, $175 for a half a day. And then you can also say, if you don't know how many days that the hearing is going to take or trial is going to take, it could say for the amount of days, half days, it could say per day until the end of the hearing. And also, if it's something you're going to be doing out of county, the mileage rate right now is 0.67 cents per mile. That would need to be included in the order. And then it would be a good idea, if it's one of those cases that looks like it may take a little while, to go ahead and include $25 per hour if it's over 8 hours. If any of those things aren't listed that you think might be applicable, let the attorney know, and then they can get it pre-approved before the date of the hearing, and make sure they give you a copy of that new order with any changes. So just kind of look over the order if they give you one and see what's on there. And if any of those are missing, then just ask them if they'll go ahead and fix that at the time. It will save time in the long run. Also help things flow a little bit smoother. And then also you could bring your invoice. If you know it's going to be all day or a half a day, you could even bring your invoice with you to court for like the appearance fee and get the attorney to sign it there. So you'll kind of be a step ahead of getting it processed. Or you could make a form invoice that you could neatly fill in while you're in court. But the goal is, whenever possible, is to have the attorney sign your invoice in court. If you're just there for a court appearance, that way you won't have to wait on emails going back and forth, and it'll just streamline the processing procedure.
And just like we talked about the transcripts, I'm sure the plea from the court reporters, or from you in particular, so they don't get into Dutches, to the attorneys, please, court reporters, ask if it's indigent, and please, attorneys, tell the court reporter, be honest, and tell them if their client's indigent, because that helps out in the long run, doesn't it?
Right, it does. It helps with the timeline, and it'll also help between going back and forth with emails and different things. And also, it could stall a hearing or something if it's not pre-approved and the court reporter can't do it, or maybe doesn't have a contract or something too.
Well, I think we've given them the transcript order and an order for appearance on the tncourts.gov website. And you're a great resource for court reporters to connect with when we have some issues, and you and I interface regularly. I appreciate you taking the time today, being with us, Lisa. And if you need to take a look at some of those orders, whether you're an attorney or if you're a court reporter, just check it out, tncourts.gov.